times no.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of wish. Um, I really definitely wish Snake would have pressed praise on the issue of slavery.
Oh, yeah, and well, this isn't really exactly that topic because that's a really tough topic to argue. But I did come up with a very unique argument for it in the side chat while I was there, and that is the word Christian means slave to Christ, and we can't be slaves to Christ if slavery is not legal, in the Torah, for instance, or well,
Interesting.
in the Torah.
Let's see. Who do we have here?
So,
Oh,
oh,
hey, how are you,
snake.
Snake? Are you there?
Yeah.
Hey,
Can
Snake.
you
Good
hear
to
me?
see you, man.
What's up?
Great job on your debates. We were just, I don't know if you were listening to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago about kind of deconstructing some of the things that I kind of wish you would have pressed him on. I definitely wish he would have pressed praise more on the issue of um, slavery in the Bible. Um, I'm actually really surprised you didn't bring that up once you started talking about objective morality and the Bible.
Yeah, I'm talked to him about it a few times, so um I do always want to get into that. It's just you got to pick your time. Um it's definitely a weak point where like I'm more interested in getting to okay, like I can seal man and say, "Okay, your God, you're saying your God is perfect." Um let's explore why and how and where he's deriving his perfect morals from and um but yeah, it is a problem that the Bible is based in very imperfect moral laws.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the ways that the Christian theology kind of tries to special plead it down by saying, oh, that was just the Old Testament. I think Matt Slick's daughter, the reason why she kind of started converting was when she realized, hey, this doesn't make sense. How can something be um, wrong in the Old Testament but correct in the New Testament and vice versa?
Yeah. And there's always the question of where's the update. So this law was made for the ancient Near East. One, what about the ancient everywhere else? And two, what about now? Where
Wait,
like
wait.
why is the law always tailored to these ancient cultures
But
that
what update are you talking about
obviously
with
somehow
slavery?
for some reason God just agrees with these ancient cultures and doesn't doesn't have anything much else to say.
Right.
But what's the update with slavery? Is that what you're saying? That like slavery is no longer legal according to Torah?
Well, I mean, most basically, what would God's recommendations be for modern people?
Yeah, I mean,
Like all we can do is just extrapolate like okay, well, since we don't actually have the objective morals, we just have the morals tailored to the ancient Near East peoples. We can just we all can only hope to extract those fine grains of what God really wants and apply it to our modern times.
yeah, I mean, we can't tell if slavery would have been best because we did a whole like kidnapping system, and kidnapping is punishable by death in Torah. So, yeah, because we know that I know I was sort of saying this argument before, but I think it's actually really solid. Being slaves to Christ is a good thing, and that proves that slavery, when it's done right, is actually a good thing.
How is that good? Just because you say it's a slave to Christ? But
Well,
also, I
slave
have
to
to push
truth.
back. They did kidnap people in Torah. You just couldn't kidnap Jews. You could kidnap people in other nations.
Well, you could buy people, or there was occasions of war, but the war was not considered kidnapping.
Right. So but it is kidnapping now. If you go and destroy someone's town and then take them away from their family and give them a period to mourn their family that you've taken them away from, that's kidnapping. You can call it you can
Well,
special plead, but
yeah, I mean, it was really a matter of war because Israel is God's family, and so sometimes war was necessary to protect Israel. There's the whole thing with the cosmic war and the when the nations were distributed among lesser gods and all that, and so that's a very big factor. But no, yeah, because we know as slaves to Christ, we're slaves to truth, we're slaves to freedom, and it's a good thing. It shows that, like, if you have the right situation where you're being treated right in this like slave structure, just stops all these power struggles that we have now, so that instead of power struggles, it's harmony. That is better. But I mean, yeah, that's better. And then you have the better people in charge, the greater in heaven and lesser in heaven. And Messiah talks about all that, and it does work very well. But
there weren't power struggles in the Torah?
If I can counter this,
you're talking about the Near East, but the ideal is in the eternal. So you're actually referencing like a lesser shadow, and yes, I mean that's some of the problem. Oh, sorry, Neff. I just wanted to get that in. What was that?
I just wanted to just kind of counter this by saying that slaves to Christ. Well, Jesus himself said that a slave can't serve two masters because you'll love one and hate the other. So how can slavery be legal if you're only supposed to be slaves to God or slaves to Christ? Because obviously you can't serve two masters.
Well, that's different context. If you have what's going on an earthly, or if you have what's going on a spiritual, and so it would be the right thing that the slave owner in ancient Israel would have been a slave to Yehovah, and that the slave of the slave owner spiritually he would have been a slave to Yehovah, and so Yehovah was the spiritual master of everybody, but there is earthly masters for earthly order, for practical things.
So, why didn't it just say? So why is all the laws tailored to the ancient Near East, though? If this is a book that's supposed to apply objectively to all cultures.
Yeah, I mean, I never realized that the way you prove that slavery is right when it's done right is based on slavery to Christ. But of course, everything's proven through Christ, so I should have known that. So this is new to me, but that's a different argument. So I'm making a different argument.
Yep. So just out of curiosity, Nicholas, what do you say that, if I understand you correctly, would you argue for reinstituting slavery?
Would I argue for reinstituting slavery? No. Like I said, we're talking about like the ideal done right, and there was a whole lot of measures for it to be going on in ancient Israel, and that was a shadow of what was right and like an example, but it was a struggle and it wasn't perfect, And at this point now, I mean, all I can really do is proclaim the good news of the Messiah, because like this world's going to hell in a handbasket fast, this cultural Marxism, what else do they call it? Critical theory, BLM, just
That's a debate in its own right.
what?
Yeah, and there's a lot of atheists are very critical of that. So it's
yeah, but ultimately it's where the totality of humanness has gone, and so we really need godness instead.
I mean, one of the major critiques of critical theory and Marxism is that it turns people into slaves.
Well, I don't care about critical theory and Marxism. I consider it like a total, joke. It's like it's a trash clown juggling machetes, and those machetes can really hurt us. But it's just a joke. I mean, it's not worthy of respect, but it's dangerous and needs to be put to death.
Hey, Gavin, how you doing?
Shalom, Sabak, Erini, everybody.
Hey,
Shalom.
Erev Tov, Gavin.
How was the sound? Test.
You sound good.
Cool. What
Shout
a good
out
debate.
Down Under.
Yeah, shout out Down Under. What a good debate.
Yeah, it was definitely a very good debate. And we have Chris in the room. How you doing, Chris?
Doing well, sir. How you doing, Neff?
I'm doing quite well here. The party's starting.
It's a great debate, man. It flowed good. I mean, Smokey did an excellent job just letting it go because, both of them, like I said at the end, regardless of what side you're on, it was a great discussion. I mean, as far as the way they let each other kind of move into each other's points and whatnot. So,
Yeah, I think it was a very respectful back and forth. It was very informative from both sides. Um, Chris and Gavin, who do you think won the debate?
Well, I mean, of course, I'm gonna not just as I have to. I believe, what was his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Praise I am.
I am that I am.
Praise, yeah, praise did. I, this is the snake in here. This isn't the same snake that was in the debate, is it?
Yep, same
Yeah.
snake.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, just you did well. I mean, you presented a lot of good points, and I wouldn't say you were dodging it all or anything, but I mean, just some of the stuff I didn't follow, like where you said the sun was immoral,
If it didn't exist.
or sun was
Okay.
moral. Like, do you think like objects can be moral?
Well, I think they have to be like since it's based in existence itself. That the more things that can coexist together, the better.
Right. You don't think that a mind has to to I mean, like, to know right from wrong. I mean, you wouldn't, like, a 2-year-old that does something, they're not doing anything immoral if they do something, let's say, like smack a grown up in the head on act, because they want something, which we would say was wrong. You don't smack people.
Well,
But you,
I'd say it is immoral. It's you can't really hold them accountable because they don't know, they don't
right,
understand it.
but I'm saying the point is that that the mind would need to be there, would it not? To have the discussion of morality,
Well, to have a discussion, sure.
because I mean, rocks fall down, bust to the rocks. I mean, they didn't do anything bad to the other rocks. It happened. It's cause and effect.
Yeah. By
Yeah,
the way,
but
on the same topic here, I know Gavin. I think you said, how can the sun not be moral, and if it didn't exist? Well, we know how the sun was born. We know there wasn't a sun, and then we know how stars are born and how they die. Was the sun immoral before it was born? Like, how does that even work?
well, it's better that it exists.
Who's saying that the sun is moral or immoral?
Snake
Well, that
saying that.
Yeah, I'm saying that there's moral content to things that exist. So it's better that the sun exists because it can provide life.
right, but which what I asked was, well, how could it be immoral? What would be an example of that?
Well, if it ceased to
And you said
exist or if it wiped out life.
The
okay,
sun
if
doesn't have a conscience. The sun doesn't have a conscience, so it's neither immoral or moral.
yeah, it's just
Well, you can't hold it. It's not a moral agent.
So
right.
then why
I guess I
prescribe
need you to
morality to it?
define moral. I'm sorry, Gavin. I'm over talking. I have a little delay. I apologize. You go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I apologize, guys. There's about a 3-second delay down here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's a silly argument to ascribe morality to the sun. The sun doesn't have a conscience. It's neither immoral or moral. It's a creation created by the ultimate creator.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But a crocodile doesn't have a conscience, but it's still immoral if it eats a child.
I would actually disagree with that. I mean, obviously, we can't
I mean,
hold
I
it
get.
morally responsible. We
Well, I
can't.
guess
Yeah.
we're getting into a little semantics there, because then you get
Yeah.
into like right, wrong. That's a big thing when you're getting into the morality argument, is bad, good, and right, wrong, and then so you really got to define terms, and then you get lost in that. So we just kind of have to just like accept we kind of know what we're talking about, as far as we understand each other. When I say morality, I mean like something that you would do that is what you ought to do or you ought not to do. And a crocodile doesn't know what it ought not to do. It might know what it ought to do. It ought to eat to survive, but it doesn't know what it ought not to do. And it shouldn't just, because there's examples of like where like in nature where animals kill other animals for no reason, for fun. You'll see it all. You'll see it different.
Yeah.
I can't think of a quick example, but it happens.
Well,
So,
just like a child hitting their sibling or something, they might not know that it's wrong, but it's still wrong. So given the premise that there is a right and a wrong thing to do, or a good and a bad, I think all things can be held accountable to that. Even if you can't hold them responsible, you can, like, their actions will either be good or bad. You can't hold,
right. Okay, let's make it a
you
little
can't
simple.
tell them why necessarily, but
Can I jump in real quick about a couple of words?
Yeah.
Is responsible, is that having to do with response?
I guess it would have to do with them being able to understand, or you can
There's
either punish or reward, or explain to them that they did something wrong and are capable of changing their behavior.
Okay,
Right,
and
and you-
then the other one was accountable. So you're talking about measurability and trackability then?
Yeah, I suppose so. That'd be
Okay.
fair to say.
There's a really good reason. It's a really good logical reason why objective morality traces back to God, because it has to trace back to God, a logical living being, a logical moral living being. Because how can you get objective morality from something that is non-moral, that doesn't know morality?
Well, the thought experiment I do is I actually assume a God. I assume that it knows what morality is. And so I go, how is this God deciding what is good and what is not good? And what you have to conclude is that all the things that would be good are things that are basically able to coexist with each other. So freedom. So it's good if you know more things because you can create more things. It's good. It's bad to kill other people because you're reducing the amount of existence and the amount of freedom in the universe. And you can apply that universal standard to everything.
No, that's your model of objective morality, but it's not God's model of objective morality.
It would have to be, though.
No. God's model of objective morality is really simple. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul, and love your neighbor as you would want to be loved yourself.
Why is that good?
Well, morality is in the
It is
identity of God.
self-evident, Snake. If I have to explain it to you, then there's something wrong with you. It's self-evident.
No, I can explain it. It's not self-evident. If God is good, then it's good to love him because you understand what the correct thing to do is.
If you understand what the word God means, then you know that it is self-evident. It seems you don't understand what the word God means.
Actually, this is a pretty good point to discuss. What exactly does God mean? Because from the attributes that I understand, the concept of God seems to be completely incoherent, at least from my understanding.
Well, I mean, I'd rather begin more fundamentally rather than starting to list a bunch of attributes. Like first you have the fact that there is fact, the fact that there is existence, you know? So on the fact of fact, that's the most straightforward way to describe the Father. And then the Father promised, and that promise is Messiah. And then so Messiah is all the commands of the Father, and the universe is through him, and we are all generated through him when we are made alive. And then there's the Spirit of God, that's the Spirit of truth, because the fact of fact is truth, and God is truth. So then we have the Spirit, and we have the Son of God, who is God, God born of God, who inherited the name of his father, Yehovah. And then we have the Father, the fact of fact.
So
Can't
I have to
argue with
ask
that.
why we should even care.
Real quick, one more thing. In the fact of fact is the part where his identity has morality in it.
So I have to ask why we should even care what is in God's identity. Is it because he is correct?
Because he's the fact of fact, so that's what's correct. Yeah, because he's the fact of fact.
And he's
Okay, so
100%
morality is based in what the facts are, right?
Yeah, but the facts are God too.
Well, God is truth.
Hypothetically.
Jesus was the embodiment of truth, so God would be truth.
Amen.
Yeah, so if you want to know more about God's character, it's Jesus, Yeshua, that makes God's character obvious. And it's
How so?
obvious, so you are
If
without
we could
excuse.
find some sort of thing that shows Jesus to be incoherent, just for the thought experiment, would you say that there's still a correctness out there if it could be shown that Jesus was incorrect?
It's too late for me. You'd have to ask someone else that question.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
think you could.
you should be able to entertain
No,
the
I'm
hypothetical.
No.
well,
If you could
spiritual-
hypothetically show, if you could
We should be
hypothetically
able
show
to-
Jesus lied,
I can hypothetically entertain if Jesus was the truth.
I'm sorry,
Well,
not hypothetically, objectively. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
We don't have to entertain hypothetical thoughts. We can just deal with the present day realities.
Well, no, Snake, I can't really do that because I'm not beholden to philosophy the way I'm beholden to the Spirit of God. And so that's why it would be kind of nonsense for me to entertain that hypothetical because I'm so closed to it, because I know the truth, because the Spirit of God has revealed God to me, because God is gracious and does that when he wants to.
But you should still be able to entertain hypotheticals. Like that's the basis of a thought
Why?
experiment. Like if this is true, then
Why?
what would follow from that?
Well, I could entertain
Why?
that. I mean,
Why can't we just-
what's your hypothetical?
If Jesus was shown to be incorrect. Like I
Yeah, I
can
mean,
entertain
I would
the
be- I would be
hypothetical
in
that
denial.
I'm incorrect.
Okay, but I'm gonna say okay, but he was not shown to be incorrect. Correct.
But that's not the
Did you
question.
have an example? Do you have an example?
But that's not the question. I'm asking. So we can do.
Yeah,
we can
if
just
you
do
could
that.
show
Okay,
Jesus, if you
what
could show Jesus was a
if-
liar, that would falsify Jesus. Right? You know,
Well,
that would.
Well, you see,
I
to
mean,
me,
I
what
can,
falsifies the
but
source that he's a liar. That's why I say it's too late for me, because he is my standard of truth. So no matter what else is presented, it has to go through him. He is the standard of truth. And so no matter what sort of proof there supposedly is, it would have no possible impact on me.
Right, and I
That's
can
what I
agree
meant
with
by
that in a
but
sense.
I know. But so if I said, okay, what if whales could fly? We know whales can't fly, but the hypothetical is if whales could fly, what would follow from that?
Okay, I would be in denial. Not if whales flew, but I would be in denial in the Jesus situation.
I think what Nicholas is trying to say that like if he would have to entertain that there would be some reason for God to do something, even in your hypothetical, because he's accepted that truth and that
Truth, Jesus is my standard of truth. That's the way it's become. So
Yeah,
there's just
so-
no way out of it. He is the only standard of truth I have. So there's no standard by which he could be disproved.
And the truth matters regardless
not
of
the
your
question,
biases or your presuppositions.
Yeah, but that's just not the question.
Well,
I
I'm
think
not
I
really
answered
interested.
it,
I'm
right?
not interested in thought experiments, Snake. Why don't you deal with the present reality now or the past reality? Why do we have to do hypotheticals?
Because we can ask, okay, what would entail if it was true, and what would entail if it was not true?
Well, I have no interest, so I have nothing to add.
Well, I mean, it's just, I mean, even if you, I mean, okay, go ahead with your hypothetical. I just don't see where it's going to lead. So I'll take the bait. Go ahead. What's the hypothetical?
The question is just if Jesus could be shown to be incorrect, would there still be a correctness in the universe, or can it only be Jesus? So, you know,
Okay, if there was no Jesus is an embody. Okay, what in my worldview, Jesus is the embodiment of truth. Okay, when he come to the earth, you know, Jesus is God, so he you know he is truth. So if you're basically saying if I could somehow prove to you that God was a liar, would that falsify, or would that change your mind or falsify God? And yeah, I mean, if you could prove God is a liar, I mean that would. But I've not ever come across that proof. So I mean, did I try to at least go along with your hypothetical?
Sort of. Do you get what I'm saying, David?
I know what you're saying. I mean, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, but I just don't see where that hypothetical was going to get anywhere. But yeah, you were talking about the sun. Like, what about a rock? I mean, is a rock? Can it be immoral? That's I'm still having trouble with that.
Yeah.
Because that's not a hypothetical. I mean, it's just a straightforward question. Can a rock be immoral?
Well, it would be bad if there were no rocks.
That's
Wouldn't
not the
you agree?
question.
Yeah.
Well,
But of course,
what if I not necessarily, because what if there were something besides rocks like iron or something that could replace the rocks and do just as good, and we could still have an Earth and would still be here, right?
Hypothetically, sure, but I think
well,
it
that's
would
what
be
we're
better
doing
if
in
there
how.
was both, right?
Well, I mean, we'd have to. That's a hypothetical. We'd have to take the rocks out of here and then replace it with what I said, and then see what we got. We might be better.
Yeah, so I can
without the rock.
entertain a world without rocks, even though I know there are rocks.
Yeah, but that still doesn't
So
explain. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
if it was
Let me cut you
just solid iron, would we ever be able to manipulate it
off.
as well as we can manipulate rock?
If you take the rocks out, then you don't even have. We're not even. They're gone. We don't even have. They're not. They're nothing. So they're. We don't even have nothing to compare to. You know what I mean? Because that's if I'm not understand how they're bad. I mean, a rock can be bad. You can use rock to do bad things, but how it can be immoral itself. Because then you're going to get into semantics of like, can a rock be evil?
Well, a rock slamming into the earth and destroying it is evil.
Snake, where do you think that the abstract concepts of morality, absolute objective morality, came from?
From truth.
Which came from where?
What the facts are.
Which came from where?
I don't know. Probably not a God.
Well, you have no,
because the God exists according to reality.
Ground your explanation in. It ends up with I don't know.
There's nothing to ground a God in either.
Wait, but that's exactly how I
there
defined
is. Absolutely there is.
If you can say I can ground a God in a God, then I can just say I can ground the universe in the universe.
No. The infinite regress that you get to is I don't know. Christians get to God the Creator, the eternal Creator, non-contingent Creator.
But that doesn't help. You can just
personal revelation, and revealed through His Word.
Insert anything there, though.
That makes a lot better sense than I don't know.
Not necessarily. Sometimes I don't know is the best answer.
Well, it's not the best answer in this case.
But Snake, when you said it's in the truth and in the facts, that was the exact same logic chain as when I say it's in God, and I even defined God the exact same way. I mean, on this point, we're having perfect agreement. So the whole thing is like, it's not the God of Christ, but
the morality
in your vocabulary, you talked about a God. Like, it's really hard for me to think you're an atheist if you say that things are grounded in truth and facts, because that is God. So that's not atheism.
Because, well, I believe that there are truth and facts without a God, is the thing.
But God also means whatever you hold ultimate. So if you're holding truth and facts ultimate, then those are your God. So, I mean, whatever definition we're going with here, you have a God.
If you want to call it a God, I don't believe that it is conscious or has a mind or an intelligence of any kind.
You're free to believe that, Snake. But what it comes down to is when you get to truth comes from facts, where do facts come from? I don't know. That's it. You have no grounding for anything.
Yeah. Well,
that doesn't mean I just get to make something up.
Nobody's making up the Judeo-Christian God of the Bible.
They're making up the other gods?
Well, it might be more akin to reverse engineering than making things up. It's like we're really going from the information and then, deducing, or I don't know my logic words that well, but we're getting it from what's there and making sense. So it has nothing to do with gaps. It has to do with evidence.
I went into the debate thinking like which one which one, secular morality or Christianity, better explains objective morals? So I kind of took it that you both agree that they're objective morals, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So which one better explains our objective morality that we both agree on? And then we'll go from there. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think a God on its own explains what it is. We can assume there's a God, but that still doesn't explain what morality is.
Why?
Yeah, I don't.
Why?
Okay, so then you're just saying it's divine command theory, which doesn't make any sense. If you say there's a God, then that God must have a set of rules he's following to define what morality is.
No.
Yeah, see that.
No.
Yeah,
His
otherwise
nature,
it's random.
his nature,
it's
his
just arbitrary and random.
Essence, his essence.
So he has no reason. He has no reasoning or justification behind his morality.
It's hard to say what the boundaries are of how those function. You know, it's beyond ours. So
yeah, Isaiah 55. My ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts.
We definitely have to accept
that.
Things. Yeah, we definitely have to accept some things, like, you know, God is righteous. We have to accept these things. You know what I mean? Because, like, you know, but I don't think how you can do that in anybody's worldview. You have to assume some things. You know what I mean? We just have to make some assumptions.
So either that God would have rational justification for his morality, or he would not. Which is it?
God is rational justification. Right? It's a reflection of him.
God's a mind.
Yeah, and rational morality. Is that what you said?
So what is the justification for good?
Justification is a reflection of God.
What makes something good in God's eyes?
Ronnie, ever praise I am this year.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good to hear from you.
Shalom.
Shalom.
What makes something good in God's eyes? And the Bible, you know, I mean, you're asking through our worldview, so what we're going to be giving you is stuff from our worldview.
Right, but he self-discloses himself to us.
Yeah. So
how is he deciding? Like when he goes, when he's analyzing something when he's analyzing something to decide whether it's good or bad, what criteria is he using to understand what is good and what is bad?
He's written that in our heart, in our conscience. He's written.
But what traits does it have to have to be good? What traits does something have to be good?
If God had to think about it, then he would be subject to it, which means he's not God. So
well, that's fine. That's why I rephrased. What traits does it have to be good?
Well, he's composed of several virtues. So we would say he has ambivalence. He has those virtues that compose his character.
But what traits does something have to be good?
Oh, the ones made obvious by Jesus Christ.
Which are?
He would have.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer,
well, let's
Nicholas.
do a New Testament reading now. Then no, I'm just playing, but I mean that's what it is, right?
What are those traits, though?
They're the ones made obvious by Jesus Christ.
Which
I guess
are?
if you read the gifts of the Spirit, that would, I mean, all those would fit. They're the gifts of the Spirit of God.
What makes that good?
Snake, we're adult, and we're trying to have an adult conversation. You're starting to ask some pretty silly, sort of obfuscating questions, like which are the traits of the
heart of the matter.
Evident.
I don't want to pile on. I want to listen. Kind of. You made some good. I mean, I like your arguments. I mean, you made some good points in there. I just didn't follow. You made some assertions that I didn't follow. So I don't want to feel like you feel like we're attacking you. So I just want to let you speak too. But so
I also want to give a response because you asked me the question, and Snake asked me, so I want to go and respond. Is that
Oh, go ahead, sir.
I forgot for the moment though.
Well, the question is, what traits does something have to be good?
Yeah, and then I said the ones made obvious by Jesus Christ.
But what are those traits?
And then I think you said something about why are they good?
Love. Okay, loving your neighbor as thyself. That's a trait. Okay. Which
Right.
Why
they
is that
reflect
good?
your character.
why is it good?
Oh, I
To love
remember
your
what
ne-
I just wanted to respond by saying that we've been offering like something that's really holistic here. We haven't just been like, so like it's really cohesive and holistic. And
Okay. I
Yeah.
can answer why that's good because if you truly treat someone the way you want to be treated, then you're basically going to be you're basically going to be doing just like you do to yourself. So they're going to become you. So you're not going to do anything to them that you wouldn't want done to you. So that puts you at one with them. You understand that?
Well,
So
and
you really couldn't do anything if you actually truly lived by that and did 100%. You would not do any. You could not commit any evil or you would commit any bad acts if you actually lived to it 100%, which we do not. We all fall short every day.
We
okay,
do,
but
but we
these are the
do, but one of
questions
the
I ask.
obvious things we would do if we did love our neighbour as we love ourselves, we would shelter our neighbour, we would feed our neighbour, we would care for our neighbour.
There
These
would
are
be no war. Yeah.
self-evident things. I don't know why these are so difficult for you to make. I really don't
But
know
he
why
just
these are
I
so
think he's playing a
difficult for
little
you.
Because it's not
devil's advocate,
self-evident.
maybe.
These are the questions I have to ask myself too. I can sit here and say, okay, well, it's so obvious that rape is bad. It should be self-evident. But I have to actually be able to put on paper exactly why. I have to articulate why is that bad.
God wrote His moral law in your heart.
Because
So
you're
why
causing
did he
emotional
do that?
pain.
Why is his moral law what it is?
You
As
can't
What traits do they have, and why are they
using
good?
the laws of logic
well,
or the
they
laws of
reflect the
thought.
character of
Because I
God.
mean, because his essence is goodness. He is the
Amen.
perfection of good. You know what I mean?
This
He's
is a lot
Amen.
simpler than we're making
All right,
it,
guys.
because the answer is actually that we cannot answer that. Only God would be able to answer that question, Snake.
Yeah,
So
he
how is that
condescends.
a
Yeah, good point.
But I mean, but he
explanation?
gives us
Jesus
in the
Christ
Bible.
made
He
it
gives us
obvious,
enough
so you can ask
information
him.
to answer that.
I've tried
All
to
right,
ask it.
guys.
I got no answer.
I think we
No,
should
Well,
probably
I got
go
the
into.
Playing games. Snake, you're playing games.
All right, hey guys. I think we should probably go into timed responses. That way, I want to get everyone an equal
Yeah, I
opportunity.
like that. I actually like
Sure,
that.
bud.
Yeah, good
Um,
idea, David. Good idea.
So the way that I'm going to time it, I guess I'll just play it by ear. 1 minute 30 seconds to make a case, and then 1 minute to respond to that. Praise, do you have anything you want to start? Let's just start it off with Praise since you just came in here. I haven't really got any chance to say anything. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dave. So I think Snake is trying to reason his way to God, and it's not necessarily a wise thing to do because we have limited understanding. So what we have to go by is what things have been revealed to us, and that is Scripture, His self-disclosure of Himself, and things of reality like logic. We can appeal to logic and things that are self-evident, and yeah, I would say like some of these questions go beyond the bounds of our understanding. So. But that's not an excuse either to reject God. So I'll leave it there.
All right, great. Anyone want to respond? 60 seconds.
I'll go just a little further. If we do that, what you're doing is take a little too far, then we're just going to get into all we know is I think, therefore I am. And so like he was saying, some things we have to realize are we can know, we can come to an agreement on, consensus agreement on because it's self-evident. Are you saying that nothing is self-evident?
I think nothing is self-evidently incoherent.
Because I believe you're kind of trying to maybe justify ways to not really want to. I'm not going to say that you don't want to believe in our God. That you're just trying to find ways to maybe not have an absolute or a God, that a maximum being that is good and perfect, or that sets more moral objectives that you believe in. That might be a better way to put it, and I'll yield.
That's time.
Well-
Okay, perfect. You're just on the dot.
Yeah, well, I actually assume a perfect being in how I do this thought experiment. So if there is a perfect being that knows the perfect truth, then it's going to have reasons. It's going to say, okay, so it's going to have a certain nature, and it's going to have reasons why its nature is that way. And it's going to have certain morals, and it's going to have reasons why its morals are that way. And yes, those morals are going to align with its nature, but there's a deeper question of why is its nature that way? And why does its nature approve of some things and disapprove of other things? There's got to be a reason for that.
I think it's very similar to your argument today, your syllogism, and my syllogism. But then where we bridge the gap there is that, like in my syllogism, it's the more harmony, but that harmony goes into like deep abstractions, and your moral stuff is talking about value, but those values go into deep abstraction when we talk about this being. And so, you know, deep in all those abstractions, you get the greatest like amount of all that, you know, and that's the most likely to exist based on my argument that I've given to you before. I'm going to say that this ties in with that and can correlate with that. I'm not going to say I can prove it, but hopefully you can hear what I'm saying and you can see like how much this makes sense. And I yield.
Excellent.
Can I have my 60 seconds, David?
I'm sorry. Okay,
Oh,
Gavin.
Chris, did you want to say something?
All right, yeah, Gavin, you have 90 seconds.
Just 60 seconds will do. Sure. God is the ultimate reality, and everything, absolutely everything, traces back to God. Even the abstract things like laws of logic, laws of thought, mathematics, for example, absolute objective morality, they all trace back to him. If God didn't exist, if there was no God, then nothing would exist. Because that's what's involved when we say God is the creator. Like, for example, tracing mathematics back to God, if God didn't exist, then 2 + 2 would never equal 4. They wouldn't make anything else either. There wouldn't be anything for the number 2 to refer to. There would be absolute nothingness. But God exists necessarily, precisely to say that 2 + 2 do equal 4 in an absolute and ultimate way. Therefore, it's an impossibility to say that God does not exist. Things like the abstract laws of logic, thought mathematics, and absolute morality, they are rooted within God, and therefore they are a reflection in our world of God. And I yield.
Well said. Wow.
Yeah, that was right on the dots. So well done.
Look at that, Kevin. God's working in you, buddy. God's working in
timing,
you.
brother. It's all timing.
Okay, Snake. Anyone want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that there is some kind of ultimate truth, but whether it's a mind or not, doesn't seem like it is, because of problems like the fact that the mind requires certain things that are supposedly the product of that mind in order to exist in the first place. So what I'm trying to get at, which I still haven't heard anyone address, is the reason why God has, so assuming there's a God, why does God have these certain things in his nature? There has to be a reason why they're true. And it's not just because he decided so, it's because it's the only way it can be true.
Time.
Yeah, I mean, that's like asking, why is God eternal? It's the same question.
Yeah. Those things exist because God does exist. That's what he is. That's in his essence. Like we have these laws, you know, in nature, and if you have a law, I mean, it follows that there's a lawgiver, right? Does that
Amen.
does that not follow to you?
I understand, Chris. That's kind of the fallacy of equivocation, because when we talk about a law in science or a law in logic, we're not talking about a law such as a prescriptive law, but rather a descriptive law. We're describing how things work. We're describing how nature is. It's descriptive, not prescriptive. So it's a fallacy of equivocation, if that makes sense.
Okay, we'll just keep it on moral ontology then. Okay, but I think you're really asking for us to we would I would have to be God to be able to just even if when we go to heaven, we'll never fully truly know exactly everything about God. The Bible says He's incomprehensible, indescribable. I mean, we're never going to, unless you were God, you could not have, you could not, I cannot answer your questions. But being that there is God, and that is what His essence of His nature is, that is why we have these. That is why we yearn for truth, because that is what He is.
All right,
Does that make
guys.
sense?
So unfortunately, I am getting really tired. I'm going to be starting to go off to sleep soon. I want to thank everyone for joining me. I want to give everyone 1 minute to say any last remarks. And tomorrow, either tomorrow or Wednesday, is going to be my debate with Mr. Batman. So please stay tuned for an announcement. Again, everyone has 1 minute to make any last remarks. Praise I am that I am. I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I want to just encourage Snake to keep on searching for God, because I'm glad you're doing that, and not just shunning completely anything with God and say, oh, that's just weird, crazy stuff. So I respect Snake for doing that, and I think maybe you'll come, if you keep searching for God, you'll find Him, because it says if you search with all your heart, you'll find Him. So that's my hope for non-believers. I ultimately want people to come to Christ, because no matter how bad a sinner you are, you'll be forgiven and go to heaven. So, I mean, that's all in it there.
Okay. Snake, you have 1 minute. Any last remarks?
Yeah, thanks for hosting. It's nice to meet you, David. And I've talked to everyone else here before, so good to see y'all. And yeah, I'm just trying to find out, basically, given a God, that its nature must have a reason for it. And so I think that reason is the thing that is the unmoved thing. Even if God isn't, I think that's the more important aspect. It is the thing that defines God itself. And so I think that would be true in all possible worlds. So that's really what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, awesome. And Snake, it was very nice to meet you as well. You did a very good job in your debate. Very well done and respectful. So kudos to you. Gavin, you have 1 minute.
Sure. Thanks so much, David. Thanks, Snake. Thanks, Praise. Thanks, Nicholas. Thanks, Chris. Chris, you had some awesome comments in the chat tonight. I'm just going to finish quickly. Look, absolutely everything comes from God. Absolutely everything depends on God. God didn't inherit anything. It all comes from Him in some way or another. That includes concrete things like things we can touch and see, matter, energy, space, and time. But as mere mortals, we have like a sliver. We're made in God's image in the Imago Dei. We have a sliver of God in us. We're aware of more things than just the concrete physical things. We're not just aware of like colored things, but we're aware of actual colors, like what the color yellow looks like. And we're not just aware of a pair of sunglasses, but the number 2, which is the number of lenses in a pair of glasses. And I yield.
Okay, Chris, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for having me in, Neff. And definitely, you two guys rocked it tonight. I respect both your views. Snake, sounds like you're on a quest for truth. I found it in Jesus Christ, and it answers my questions. God is infinite. That's one thing that is like I said, was saying a minute ago, that we'll never fully understand here on Earth. And that He created time, space, and matter. He's outside of that, so we can't even comprehend it. But He's allowed us to know things, and it's revealed through His Word. And I would encourage you to read the Word, and it will be shown to you if you search it with your heart. That's it.
All right, great.
Beautiful.
Nicholas, 1 minute.
In the primordial was the logos, also logic, also reasoning, also something spoken, also promise. And the promise was with the God, and the promise was the God. The same was in the primordial with the God. All were generated via him. Without him were none generated, which were generated. In him was life, and the life was the light of persons.
All right, thank you so much.
Amen. Beautiful.
Once
Wow.
again, thank you guys so much for joining
Wow.
me. Again, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you guys later for my debate with Mr. Batman.